Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our Sueur City Council meeting dated June 12, 2023. At this time, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council members, you all received your packet via email or hard copy this weekend. I hope you all had an opportunity to look it over. At this time, we will entertain any motions to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Swamberg. Councilmember Williams, thank you. Any other discussion, comments, or concerns? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to public hearing. At this time, I'll allow Mr. Willie to add a few words if you don't mind.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And then we'll open the public hearing after you're done. Thank you.
Correct. So tonight, the city duly noticed a public hearing related to the nuisance property at 520 Water Street here in Sueur. And I'll give just a brief overview here, and then I would request the council move and vote to open the public hearing related to this matter. Last 18 months, city staff have had repeated interactions with the property owner at 520 Water Street, serving this individual several notices regarding various nuisance and zoning violations. And prior to any order of abatement, which the city council will consider as item 8A on tonight's regular agenda. Per city code, the city council must provide the property owner an opportunity to appeal the violations that have been levied against the property. And tonight is just that opportunity. So that's a quick summary. And then
With that, we will entertain any motions to open up tonight's public hearing. Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan.
Second.
Councilmember Tui, I think I saw you second, so thank you. Any other comments, discussions? If not, all those in favor? Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Public hearing is open regarding 520 Water Street. Do we have somebody who'd like to speak? Name. Go ahead.
we do, John. If you'd like to come to the podium, John.
I'll take that as a no or a yes.
Yes, Kirby, I'd like to go to the podium.
And if you don't mind stating your name, please.
My name is John Hart, 520 Water Street. I guess I would ask you guys first, what are your intentions?
This is your opportunity to speak to us.
Yes, I'm wondering what your intentions are.
Well, we'd like to know if you're going to comply with the ordinances as far as cleaning up your property. That's what we need to know.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Is that all you have to say?
I can answer any questions.
Well, I don't have any questions. It's you got comments, go ahead and make them and we'll move along with the business.
Up on top there, it looked a little bit bad, but
It looks terrible.
well, yeah, well,
Yeah, it looks terrible.
I wondered, why does anybody, is there any reason for anybody to be on that road, be that it's not even a road? And that it doesn't go to anywhere, there's not even a place to turn around, it's essentially a driveway and an easement.
It's your property.
Correct.
Yes.
Which you can't see from the road, which is Grove.
Mr. Hart, this is your is it Mr. Hart or Mr. Fogarty?
I'll answer either.
This is your opportunity to speak. Go ahead and speak. Okay. I'm not going to answer questions for you. I'm going to listen. This is a public hearing, so we're here to listen to you. So this is your opportunity.
Okay. Well, I guess I don't believe it needs to be abated. I would take any input on what the city expects of me or of the property in general, like what, like, I don't want people to I don't want it to look that way necessarily myself at all. It's a lot, I spend a lot of time just picking up stuff that rolls downtown when it rains. It rolls down from uptown, and I do, while I was getting violations last year, the folks at Agri-Pure were giving me thank you cards and gift certificates for picking up all their trash. There's people that do see the good that I do down there, and there's people that notice, you know, positive things. I'm not trying to make it negative. I don't want it to be negative. You know, I just want to be. I'm not trying to step on any toes by any means. I'm really not.
Anything else, Mr. Hartman?
I suppose no.
I appreciate your comments. I think the city has laid out very specifically several expectations of you and your property.
Well, then I can speak more to now. If we're going to speak on that subject, I certainly can.
I think we're about done. I think you told me you were finished.
Well, I didn't know what we were speaking to. I can respond to that.
Do you understand the expectations?
I do not understand the expectations. Sean, when I seen the ordinances for the first time, Nielsen presented them to me and he said, these are the ordinances that aren't in line, you know, and this is what you got to do. And so what I did was I got out of the floodplain. I went on the higher part of my property. I got 4 loads of gravel, spread it out, bituminous surface, you know, as required for the ordinance. And that's what I did. So I complied to the best of my ability. And as far as it goes, I was in compliance. The thing is, what is compliance for the ordinance is not what was expected of me on my property. What was expected of me was I could have horses there, but no horse trailer. I could have no manure spreader. The things that were taken off my property that I still haven't gotten back, because I am stubborn. They were taken, they were stolen from me. That's how I feel. It was on my property. That's how I feel. So I'm a little bit bitter, and I don't want to be. I also don't want. I don't want to be at odds with anyone. I don't. I just need to know what to do, and I want to do it myself though, because for somebody to come, how would you like it if somebody came into your house because they didn't like the way you folded your underwear? You know.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. If you're done, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will, if there's nobody else here to speak on this matter, we will accept any motions to close tonight's public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Schleter.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Sullivan. Any other discussion, comments, concerns? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered normal routine and have been made available to the city council at least 2 days in advance. These items will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from this agenda and considered in normal sequence. Mr. Rody, do you mind kind of summarizing these for us, if you would, please?
Be happy to. Mr. Mayor, members of council, handful of items on tonight's consent agenda. First of which is approval of city council minutes from the last meeting, May 22nd, 2023. Item B, approval of disbursements from today. Included in those disbursements of purchases over $25,000 to MMPA for the May 2023 purchase power, $657,371.27. APTO for 2022 audit preparation, $57,227. And Sueur EDA bank reconciliation item, transferring between the two accounts for $32,540. Item C, approved payment application number 18 for the well number 8 well house project. Item D, approved payment application number 20 for the composite elevated water tower project. Item E, resolution R 2023-026, declaration of depository authorized signatures. Item F, approve easement agreements with Ridgeview Sueur Medical Center. Item G, approve the airport biannual M&O grant. And item H, approve the city administrative performance evaluation for 2022.
Very good. That was a quick summary. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for our city administrator? Comments, concerns?
You did say they were gonna take down.
Yes, and I'll address that.
Oh.
Fair question. I'll address that in my update.
Got it.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, I will consider a motion or accept any motions to accept tonight's consent agenda. Councilmember Tui, Councilmember Huntington seconded. Any discussion, comments, concerns? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Moving on to public comment. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Rich. Okay. Moving on to city administrator update, Mr. Roby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to make this brief. First of all, next week, parts of Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I'll be up in Duluth attending League of Minnesota Cities Annual Conference. I'm looking forward to that. My first opportunity to attend. Next Monday, June 19th, the city of Sueur has for the last 2 years celebrated Juneteenth. This now, according to the law that was just recently passed, Juneteenth is now a state holiday as well. So we were ahead of the game a little bit, which helped us this year with scheduling. The city offices will be closed next Monday, June 19th. The HRA, the Sueur HRA is still looking for one board member. There's one board member position open. If anyone in the public is interested, they can apply online or they can inquire with me and I can get them set up. Updates on the water tower and the well 8 projects. Public Services Director Chair will tell you that this has been a long time coming, but we are approaching the end of the tunnel on both of these projects. Both are have reached the point of material completion. Seeding is complete at well number 8. We have been hopeful that seeding of the ground would be complete at the water tower late last week. Unfortunately, it's not yet. So there's still some orange silk fencing around the water tower site. Once that's been seeded and the ground has been finished, they'll remove the orange silk fencing around that water tower project. Both the water tower and the well project, at this point, we're just looking for completion of some punch list items. So that's the ground stuff, some seating things. There's crow's nest on the top of the water tower that needs a little bit of adjusting. So just a couple minor punch list items on each of those projects. Once those are complete, which we expect to be relatively soon, the contractor on each will request a final payment from the city to include retainage. So those are very, very close to completion. We anticipate those final applications coming through very soon. Similarly, on the Main Street project and Casella 22, we're having some internal conversations around both of those projects. Contractors have been on site evaluating some of the concrete work, evaluating some of the boulevards, and we expect to be working toward closeouts of both of those projects here in the coming couple of months. Planning Commission, we are still looking for applicants. We did receive one application late last week, not on the agenda tonight, and but still looking for a Planning Commission applicant as we're trying to fill Dan Ryerson's position. And finally, it's Lindsay's birthday today. Happy birthday. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Roby. Any questions for our city administrator over anything he just covered? If not, we will move on to the regular agenda. And we will begin with the R 2023-025 abatement of nuisance property, 520 Water Street. Mr. Roby, you explained quite a bit of this already. If you want to summarize real quick again.
I would. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yeah, I give a brief summary earlier. There's a lot of detail in your packets that you've received. So from a nuisance abatement standpoint, city code is pretty clear around what procedures need to be followed in order for the city to abate or take care of and eliminate a nuisance property or clean up a nuisance property. And there's a timeline in your packet here, and I do have it outlined here, but starting back in November of 2021 through June of this year, the Sueur Police Department and city staff, including zoning administrator Nielsen and me, have interacted with the property owner on more than a dozen occasions. And the nuisance remains unabated. We conducted the public hearing tonight. From an applicant standpoint tonight, per city code, city council has the opportunity tonight to consider moving forward on nuisance abatement. The resolutions in front of council tonight, R 2023-025, is effectively an order of abatement. The order of abatement in the resolution language specifically gives the property owner 7 days to comply with or abate the nuisance themselves. After which time, if the nuisance is not abated, it directs city staff to obtain an administrative warrant and abate the nuisance. This is not a process that the city goes through very frequently. I believe the city council last considered this action in 2021 with another property within the city. Go ahead. Continue.
What's that?
Can I continue?
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
great, yes. Just a couple other things. We have it summarized here. There are four different nuisance ordinances that have been, that are currently being violated by this property. Chapter 97, sections 2, 4, 6, and 7. Nuisances affecting health, peace, security, parking, storage, and inoperable motor vehicles. And then 3 zoning ordinances. The zoning ordinances are separate from the nuisance ordinances, but they involve exterior storage ordinance, parking ordinances, and ordinances regarding recreational vehicles. I do have a timeline here. I'm not going to walk through all of this. It's included in your packet. If you have questions on any of these, of course, you certainly may ask for clarification. We do have Chief Tiki and Administrator Nielsen here with us. We do have some pictures, recent pictures of the property, which will be included in the resolution should council decide to adopt.
And none of that was looking at right now at this minute. None of it. None of those pictures are applicable.
Anybody have any questions for our city administrator, Mr. Roby?
What does abatement mean?
It's a good question, but
Elimination of the nuisance.
Okay, so it doesn't mean he loses his property. It means that he gets the stuff gets cleared off.
So the city code is written such that if city council orders an abatement of a nuisance, the city staff are then directed to abate it or take care of it. City staff then determine items that may be of value and other items that are not of any value, and then may store any of those items for 30 days. And then at that point, then the city can use its discretion to keep or enter into an agreement with the property owner to return some of the items if there's an agreement in place that the nuisance codes will not be violated in the future. This is not a typical proceeding for the city because normally if there is a nuisance on a property, a vehicle or 2 vehicles that are illegally stored, for example, or just garbage refuse on a property, normally a phone call or 1 letter takes care of it. Unfortunately here, it's been a long process, several opportunities to be given to the property owner. Take care of the property and comply with city code.
The abatement is not a threat to his property ownership. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's not a threat to the ownership of the parcels that he owns.
Okay.
But my property,
Correct.
the thing, my belongings.
Mr. Hart, Mr. Hart,
Your public comment.
Mr. Hart, you're out of order, so don't do that again, okay? You understand?
Yes.
Okay, so he keeps the property.
The
As
property.
long as he pays his property taxes, it's his.
Correct. Now, as part of an order of abatement, any cost of abating a nuisance.
I figured that. I mean, I'm just saying that whatever he puts his feet on,
Yes,
it's muddy, but it still is.
correct. This
Okay.
is not removing an individual from their property.
Good.
This is simply saying, this is a problem with this property, we're gonna take care of it. So similarly, lawn nuisances. Now, lawn nuisances is something we do a lot of around here. Someone doesn't cut their grass for a long period of time. We will send a letter if they don't take care of cutting their grass. The police call contractor cuts the grass and abates the nuisance. So there's no other impact on the property itself.
Fair enough, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just a quick one. So obviously, I mean, you cited all of the codes for the violations. How specific do we get in the letters and that here's what needs to be done?
I would say with confidence that we get very specific in the letters, citing specific items that need to be removed, and where those items are, where they can be and where they cannot be.
And timelines to go with that.
Correct, yes. So, for example, there were some items that the city did impound last year because they were parked in the right of way, which we do that from time to time. We'll impound vehicles that are parked in the right of way illegally. And we always notice the property owner. We do so via letter, via phone call. This property owner's been fairly responsive. I called him on Friday and had a conversation with him, just sharing with him what the process would be tonight. And again, council has the option of, council has the opportunity tonight to either consider the actual order itself, which sets a firm timeline of 7 days. Council could also direct staff to give the property owner 14 days or 30 days, and she'll come back to council in 2 weeks with proof of progress. And if no progress has been shown, no material progress has been shown, then we can take action.
In this particular case, I have a feeling that it isn't one or two things. I'm looking at the photos. What would be a reasonable timeline? And I know this isn't the first time he's been given this.
Yes, I'll have Chief.
So I went down to the property today to look at it before the meeting to see if any progress has been made.
Sure.
And I will say that Mr. Hart has hauled some of the property away. He's removed a manure spreader, some miscellaneous just shelving, camper trailer and a tent. So he has made improvements since we gave him the notice of this hearing today. There's still violations present on the property, including an RV with expired or not, an unregistered RV that we have reason to believe Mr. Hart is residing there. At least for long periods of time. Maybe not permanently, but long periods of time, he appears to be living in this RV. And then there's just still miscellaneous items, everything ranging from a kitchen sink to building supplies to fencing material.
Sure.
But he has made improvements. Now, the difficult thing about this, in my perspective, is although improvements have been made, it's partial compliance, it's not full compliance. And my fear is that once we turn our backs to the property, things will accumulate again. Now, we can't obviously take action on anything that may happen in the future. That's just an opinion of mine, which is, neither here nor there. But the problem is right now we have partial compliance. How do we gain full compliance? I'm not sure. Besides abatement, how else we could do that. But progress has been made. It does look nicer down there than it does in the picture. Those pictures were taken about 6 days ago.
Any other questions for our city administrator or police chief? Not, I would ask that the city council consider adopting resolution R 2023-025, I will make a motion. I think the city council and the city of Sueur have been very patient with this. It's laid out with 7 days. I'm going to make that motion.
Yeah, I was looking
Seconded by Councilmember Huntington. Any discussion, comments, or concerns?
I haven't had a couple conversations with Mr. Hart, and I have to agree with everything that's been said. I've also had conversations with other citizens who aren't on this timeline, and we could add more things. You know, because Administrator Roby has on the screen, so I am in favor of this also.
Before we go to vote,
I just want to say, you know, we don't like the idea of going onto people's private property and removing their stuff. That's something that we try to avoid at all, you know, all possibilities. It is dangerous. People obviously are passionate about their properties and their belongings, and understandably. But we need compliance, and we need to move forward with the issue. Is all I can really say about it. And it's my hope that if this resolution passes, maybe we'll gain more voluntary compliance from Mr. Hart before the 7 days expire and we have to abate the issue.
thank you.
I'm wondering if we were extended to 2 weeks, because we're all here again in 2 weeks. You know, getting that stuff out of there, what the chief said, somebody lit a fire, apparently, and he's gotten this far. You give him 1 more week, you give him the benefit of the doubt. And if 2 weeks from tonight, if it's not in compliance, let the hammer fall. And that would be my.
When we would move to abatement, we wouldn't just show up and say, hey, Mr. Hart, we're here to abate your property today's the day, and serve the warrant. We would give, you know, we would reach out to Mr. Hart and try to communicate with him. The abatement, you know, starting tomorrow, if that abatement was to move forward, we would try to communicate with him starting tomorrow, saying, you know, they said you have 2 weeks to do this, you know, and then we let 4 days go by and say you have 10 days, you have 8 days, you have 6 days, and we would try to communicate with him throughout the process, let him know that the day of us showing up to abate the nuisance issue is coming, and we would let him know exactly what our plan was, what we were going to remove, so that hopefully he would comply before that day came. But if he does not, then he would know exactly what to expect from us on the day the abatement expires, and it wouldn't be a surprise to him.
Agreed. And agree with Scott. I mean, this guy deserves
So we have a motion for the council to consider adoption of resolution R 2023-025 with the amendment that will give him 14 days.
it. Correct.
There's no amendment that's been made or seconded.
Correct. I would like to amend or
Propose an amendment.
the amended to go from.
Council member Tui has amended the motion to considering adoption of resolution R 2023-025 with the stipulation we move 7 days to 14 days.
You have to approve it and the second has to approve it.
Okay, so I approve the amendment, yes. So then I'll restate it. Right? Okay. So my motion then is that the council will consider adoption of resolution R 2023-025 with the amendment that we move from 14 days, we will now give Mr. Hart, or 7 days, and now give him 14 days to comply.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Tui. Any other discussion, comments, concerns? If not,
Mark was the second, wasn't
Yes, I say no.
okay. So with that amendment, all those in favor?
Oh, hang
he?
on.
There's not a second.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's,
there is.
There wasn't a second, was there?
Let's vote on the first
You
one.
have to vote on the first
the
one.
original amendment,
Got it.
if you and Mark is second to that, we need to vote on that.
Okay.
If Mark is not in favor of it.
Very good. We are getting a good lesson here. So,
That's rules.
yeah, Robert's rules. Thank you, Mr. Swanberg. So at this time, I will entertain a vote on the first motion, or on the first motion of resolution R 2023
A little
2023-025
clarification.
with the 7 days,
7 days.
with the 7 days stipulation to have it cleaned up. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No,
I vote no also. So, no on,
correct.
yes. You want to give them the 14 days,
That's correct.
I was okay with that too. What am I missing here?
Motion carried 4-3.
Okay. All right. What a guy. Okay, so,
So if we.
yeah, it's for clarity, for the clerk.
How many aye votes do we have on the 7 days? How many nay votes do we have on the 7 days?
4-3. So the ayes have it. Resolution R 2023-025 carries with a 7-day compliance. If Mr. Hart is still listening, I have 3 Cs for you: clean, cooperate, and comply. So you've got 7 days.
And Chief, I mean, I appreciate what you said. I mean, you just continually remind him, here's the timeline.
Yes, starting tomorrow, we have 7 days, we're gonna let him know right away tomorrow, and I'll probably try to communicate with him every day of the week that I'm here as that time approaches. Communication with him has been difficult because of his, it's hard to contact, he's hard to get in contact.
Okay.
But we'll do as much communicating as we can.
And it isn't like you said, on day 7, all of a sudden.
Yes, we're not
Yeah.
gonna show up out of the blue. I'll give him exactly on June 22nd at 9 AM, we're gonna be there to begin abating that issue.
Gotcha.
And I'll let him know that starting tomorrow.
Thank you.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I would just like to express my appreciation to Chief Tiki and zoning administrator Nielsen and the other city staff who have been helping through this process and exercising patience and working with Mr. Hart throughout this. It has been a challenge. It's not a process that we take lightly. It takes a lot of city staff involvement and to try to ensure cooperation and compliance. Unfortunately, we don't always get it, but I very much appreciate their support and assistance working through this process.
Thank you. Moving on to our next piece of business. We move on to first reading of ordinance 599. Mr. Roby, you want to explain that to us?
I would thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance 599 is an amendment to the current city code. Sorry, there's a resolution up in here.
I think we do too. Yeah.
Cigarettes.
Yes. The current city code, chapter 110, section 28, involving cigarettes and cigarette wrappers is generally grossly outdated. And many cities now are clarifying this to both update the age of ability to purchase and consume and have other person cigarettes, and also adding electronic cigarettes and e-cigarette cartridges to their city code. So for sake of clarity, the proposal in front of council tonight is to conduct the first reading of ordinance 599, which strikes the language of 18 years of age to change it to 21 years, and adds electronic cigarettes and electronic cigarette cartridges. It also adds some language around authorizing the police department to conduct a background check on any sellers for anyone who applies for a license to sell tobacco products in the city.
Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, Mr. Dooley?
What is the criteria of the background check? Say I want to think, and I've got a felony on my record. Is it a subjective thing with the city council? Is there a reference, a city ordinance that could be put in there, reference which identifies the police department background check? What happens? I mean, okay, I applied for a license. I have a felony on my record. I've done my time. Is it a subjective decision by the council, or is there a protocol that would tie into a background check?
In looking to see if GT or
Some clarity.
January.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I mean, it said we're gonna look into your background. We don't know what we're gonna do. Once we find it.
To an extent, it would be somewhat subjective, right? So if something's found in the background check that staff could still make a recommendation to grant a license to sell tobacco products, and council could say, basically, could set their own guidelines if they're felonies of, different categories or gross misdemeanors of different categories. City council could say, well, gross misdemeanors fine, but a felony conviction's not okay. And in reality, 99.6% of any applications that we would potentially get are from reputable businesses that would
Oh, I understand.
have one of these back.
It could, in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, but it could put the city council in a position where they're being accused of discrimination, because in fact it is, to your word, subjective.
Well, would you like to?
Speak to it.
Would you like to?
I can.
Certainly, please. And while I'll ask Lindsay to come to the podium, but one thing that Lindsay in particular has been looking at closely in our code is there are certain areas of code that are currently subjective to the point where, we've been looking at public events, for example, and current code for public events requires that 2 city elders be identified to approve of public dances. We haven't yet to identify those 2 public elders. So there's some of these areas that we're trying to clean up and try to make it a little bit less subjective.
But this was added, that's why I asked about the subjectivity.
So it was added because there is some verbiage being taken out to, for issuance of good character moral, okay?
Letter D.
What?
Letter D.
Right. Yes.
So, most cities will do background checks. Same with alcohol related.
No,
Just to make sure if somebody has been convicted of selling to minors on multiple occasions, that's not somebody you want in town selling cigarettes to minors. So that is the type, we're not going to, the background checks are not going to be deep digging, what's your mom's maiden name and stuff like that. It's going to be, okay, do we have any convictions of selling to minors?
Well, then my question would be, if that's the criteria, why not reference it or include it? So in other words, if you want to reject somebody for a license,
Yep.
and you're going to use a background check, and 99.6% of the time, it's a non-issue, why wouldn't you specifically identify those areas which would negate the issuance of a license?
If the license does get rejected by city council, that information would be disclosed to the individual applying for the tobacco license. It isn't going to, we're just not going to deny it because.
No, I understand that. But my point is, if Pam
Right.
got caught selling to a minor,
Yep.
and you approved her license,
Right.
but I came in with the same offense and you denied mine, there's no structure here. Yes, that's my concern.
Part of it's for flexibility with city council and adaptability with city council over time. So we could be very, very specific now and then in 2 years say, well, actually, we're having trouble finding people who don't have misdemeanor on their record. So we need to sell cigarettes in town. So let's, strike that from city code. And then we're doing another ordinance just to about to.
My only question, it just seems rather broad. It's like throwing the tomato against the wall and then we decide, like a Rorschach test, what is it? And it doesn't, see, I've been audited a million times, and an auditor would carve you up with a statement like that. Only because it doesn't say, there's no end game here. It just says, I'm going to do a background check. What the consequences are going to be completely subjective based on what the council decides or feels that particular day.
And Councilmember Tui, you certainly could have that part removed from before the second reading.
I just wanted to say it just seems too open-ended to me, that's all.
My experience is the opposite. Every time you try to nail down all the reasons you're not going to, you're gonna miss one.
Right. What I'd be concerned about, there's multiple potentials that you would not want to grant a license to an individual, whether it be a financial swindling or some other cash laundering, that kind of thing, and be too much to try to put all of that in here. So there's going to be some subjectivity based upon the decisions of this council, based on that background check. And the background check is pretty accurate and factual. And that's, I think that would allow us to be an objective decision versus subjective.
And I think whether it's this council or a council 10 to 15 years from now, let's say they reject the license based upon one finding on a background check, or considering rejecting it based upon that. What we as city staff would do would, first call we make is to our attorney and say, okay, well, we found this in the background check. They'd like to decline the license because they found this one thing. Can you find any case law that would suggest that this is discriminatory in any way? Or will this stand up? And the city attorney will say, yeah, they can deny it based on that. We've actually seen this here, and they'll reference case law and say, yes, that's fine, or no, that's not fine. So if the council ever decided to start rejecting all kinds of different licenses, alcohol or tobacco licenses or gambling licenses for that matter, for any number of reasons, a quick call to the city attorney would protect the city council. Okay. Unless city council at that point opted not to take city legal counsel's advice, which I hope would not be the case.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Leader? Yep.
One question. Will we be able to change wording before we have the public hearing and second reading of this? If there's any clarification that needs to be in the wording, can we do that before the next meeting?
That should be recommended tonight. And then the final draft for approval will come at the next city council meeting.
I know it's a minor thing and some people are going to criticize me for it, but this is still using gendered pronouns in it. And that's one thing I have been trying to clean up out of the documents. That's why I'm asking.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, I will entertain a motion for first reading of ordinance 599. We'll call a public hearing related to the same. We held June 26, 2023 city council meeting. I'm going to recommend that we waive. My recommendation is we waive the first reading. It's right here in front of you. And I will entertain any motions to do so. Yes, yes. Do we have a motion? That's my motion. I'm sorry.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Swanberg. Any other questions, comments, concerns? And I do have an unwritten rule. If you don't want to waive the first reading, you get to read it. So.
What language am I missing here?
It still refers to his and her established place of business instead of just using a neutral they.
Oh, I missed that.
Okay, we have a motion by myself, second by Councilmember Swanberg. Any other comments, concerns? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to the last agenda item is update electrical load shedding policy. That's Mr. Rowe, you want to kind of explain this to us? And we have Mr. Kuchera here too if we have any other questions.
Yeah, I'd like to invite Mr. Kuchera forward, if he'd be so kind. Electric load shedding policy, the city currently has one of these, and I would consider it a type of emergency management for the electric utility and for our community and our electric utilities customers. It involves an instance when we may be requested to shed some load or shed some of our electrical draw from the grid in an instance of a natural disaster or an extreme circumstance. Such a circumstance, just for clarification, has not happened here in recent memory. But we do have to prepare for that. We do have a policy on the books right now. MMPA, as our electric wholesaler, has made a modification to their policy, and as such, we, Mr. Chairman has made a recommended policy change to our own so that we're ready in case that we are asked to decrease the amount of electricity we're using as a utility. I'll let you take it over, Rich.
Thank you, Administrator Rowe. Yes, as Joe just stated, MMPA has revised their policy. As long as we have been a member with MMPA, we have never been requested to engage in load shedding activity. So that is the best news ever. We hope that we will never have to engage in load shedding activity. If a load shedding activity is requested of MMPA, the city of Sueur is number 6 on the list. They go in 4-hour increment blocks. So that would give us plenty of notice that we would be heading down that road, because obviously there's 5 other homes in 4-hour blocks that would be going before us. So that would give us time to get prepared, to let the public know that this is coming our way. MMPA could request that the city of Sueur reduce our demand, which is in that table, up to 5,000 kilowatts. They call it 5 megawatts, but in that table there is kilowatts. So I just put that table in there so you could see a reference of what, when we say they could request up to 5,000 kilowatts, what that would mean for our city, not just city, but for all of our customers, what kind of reduction that would mean. And that table again, it says total max. So that is a snapshot of the month of every single customer's max demand for the month. It's not an average, it's not your high. We just get one instantaneous peak of every customer in the month, and that's what the sum of that is. So the actual variable of what we would have to do to meet that 5 megawatt demand is a very gross calculation that we would have to do on the fly. There's no way to predict that until the moment it would happen. But as stated here in the PowerPoint, it gives us the opportunity and the tools to put things together to maintain the system should the utility be called on, to reduce electric load. Again, as I stated, they can request up to 5 megawatts or 5,000 kilowatts, and that is why we had to revise our policy. And I'll answer any questions. Is in order to do that, do you just, somebody flips the switch and everything goes dark for 4 hours?
That's what we hope to avoid.
No, I understand,
Yeah,
but I don't know how you do a 20% reduction. Is that like a brownout? I would not, me and Manager Anderson would not recommend a brownout because of that. For today's electronics do not do brownouts. Right. So what we would recommend, and that's part of the policy, is we would recommend circuits. And that's circuits would be areas of town that would be not the priority, that we could actually shut down for 45 minutes to an hour. We would actually shut areas down. Yep, and then we go to area number 2. Got that area down, bring area number 1 back online. That could get you your 20% roughly. Yeah. Worst case scenario, if we can't get the public to, lower the demand enough. Okay.
And remember, this is no different than an emergency preparedness plan. I mean,
Exactly.
just preparing ourselves.
I just didn't know how it worked.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, what specifically can we shut off citywide right now, city control, to get us close to this? Is there anything that we can do?
We can get citywide, we can shut off the wastewater plant can go on generation, the water plant can go on generation, and some of the wells can go on generation. That will get us about 0.4 megawatts or 4,000 or 400 watts. That's the best the city can do.
are we gonna be implementing any type of policy going forward, say, hooking air conditioners up to programs that the city will be able to shut off certain air conditioners of people enrolled in the program, that the city could say, yeah, we've got 400 people enrolled that we can shut off 400 air conditioners at one time because they agreed to do that. To me, it sounds like we're gonna need to look at something going forward, because think about all the people that have devices at home, that if we shut down certain houses for 45 minutes or an hour, there may be people who may not be able to breathe if we shut off their electricity.
Yes, so right now, we don't have any program that exists right now where we could just shut off specific devices within individual homes. We know by area of town what circuits control certain residential, commercial, industrial areas. What I would do though, however, so looking more broadly, if this were to happen, even in a somewhat controlled case where, let's just say, it's been really hot for 27 days in a row, and everybody in the central US is struggling and the grid is stretched, and we have some time to anticipate that this may be coming. We would, again, this is as controlled as it gets, right? We're not talking about a tornado or sudden natural disaster. We would still open up our EOC here at the city. And as part of that, we would begin to do outreach. That would be outreach to local public health, outreach to our local healthcare facilities and assisted living facilities, outreach to the school and our other key contacts. And we would say, all right, for those people who are vulnerable, this is a situation we may find ourselves in within the next X number of hours, and make sure that we have those people making contact with our most vulnerable residents, make contact with the hospital, make contact with the assisted livings, make contact with the clinic, and also make contact with some of our, critical businesses and see, can you run on generator? Okay, does this person have, needs some special assistance that maybe county public health needs to be aware of? We would reach out to all of those key partners as part of a broader emergency response to make sure that they are, because in those, at that time, we won't have the resources to work individually with residential property owners or residents in general to make sure their needs are met. But most of those people, a lot of them anyway, have connections and resources through county public health or through home health, through a private company. And by reaching out to them, we could say, hey, we've got 16 hours until we're going to have to do rolling blackouts across the city. That gives them 16 hours to reach out to their patient population and make sure that they have the resources that they need to get through this. Or if we think it's going to be extended beyond that, that's when we start reaching out to the hospital or other locations that have generation on site and say, okay, do you have the ability to take some people who maybe are on or something, or have additional needs that would require events, for example, we can get them on generator power. So this would be a part of the entire EOC. That was a long answer, but I think that's the route that we would take in leverage those partnerships.
I'm just wondering if going forward, we can start coming up with policy. When I was in California, your air conditioner was subject to be shut off by the city anytime we had this problem in the area. If we were over peak, they could shut off all the air conditioners in certain areas to drop the load. I'm just saying, going forward, maybe we need to start looking at that.
Yeah, that's very fair. And if there's the ability for us to do that without a huge capital investment into technology, because we have the ability to shut individual owners off right now. Using our current utility billing software, but it shuts off their meter only. ACs are not on separate meters. But if there's an opportunity to do that, we would certainly look at it.
What are your Councilmember Sueur, I believe you're saying, talking about as a load controlling system. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for our city administrator, Mr. Kuchera?
I just want to reiterate, this isn't just for city-owned facilities. This is across the board, everyone involved in the city of Sueur.
That it is. With that, I will entertain any motions to adopt a revised electric city load shedding policy as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember. Seconded by Councilmember Tui. Any comments, concerns? If not, all those in favor? Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to reports and items of appreciation. Council members, this is your opportunity to share what's going on with your commissions and your community, starting as always with Mr. Huntington.
Thank you, sir. Just a couple things, on a local level, I'd like to congratulate all the graduates. Hope I get this right. Homeschoolers, online students, LSH and Minnesota New Country School. Anybody else I missed, congratulations. I also want to congratulate all the sports teams that made it to state, as well as individuals and the teams. Real proud of you all. And that is about it.
Thank you. Moving on to Councilmember Schleer.
May 24th, I attended the Sueur County officials meeting in Lee Center. It was our last meeting of the season until the September meeting, which is going to be held in Lee Sueur. June 8th Planning Commission meeting. The commission finalized questionnaire for the future of the city forum that's going out after the 4th of July weekend. And the Planning Commission asked me to ask all of the council members to add the October 14th future of the city forum to their calendars so they can attend the event. I just wanted to reiterate, like Administrator Roby said, there still is one vacancy on the planning commission.
Thank you. Councilmember Sullivan.
I have nothing to report tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Swanger.
Yeah, just a thank you to Dylan Feeney for his work in securing funds for a new scoreboard at Bruce Frank Field. And also just a reminder that the press box dedication honoring Mike Keenan will take place this Friday, sometime between 5:30 and 6 o'clock.
Thank you. Councilmember Tui.
Nothing for tonight.
Nothing tonight. Councilmember Williams.
The HRA is having their HUD compliance monitoring task force on site starting today. Met with the 3 individuals from HUD and sounds like they had a plan to go over a number of items, so that's in process right now. I want to say that we're going to miss Scott Schrader. He's leaving the city and we enjoyed him as much as I interacted with him on our path. Also, Summer in the Valley, I think that's what's happening this Thursday. Just a reminder of people that we have in County. That's all I have.
Thank you. The only comment I have tonight is I just want to reiterate the open hearing we had tonight regarding 520 Water Street. This is just kind of a reminder to our community. We want you to have your homes unique. We want them to be special to yourself. We don't want to tell you how to live or what to decorate with, but it's important. I get a lot of complaints. It's probably number one complaints I get as mayor. It's how some of the properties look. So it's very important. Just take care of your place. Take a little pride in it. And we don't have to have these painful hearings at City Hall. So with that, I have nothing else to share, and I will entertain a motion to close tonight's meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor? Anybody opposed? The ayes have it.